Welcome, Sainers. Welcome back to the Saints TV YouTube channel. It's a big one. It's the first official preview of the season. It's hopefully I'm sure Caden will agree. It's a grand final preview. It's an early grand final preview for the Saints and the Dees. And as you know, Caden's a massive Melbourne fan, so we've got him on having a chat. We're going to cover off Friday's game. Obviously, straight off the bat, we need to just get your view of when we versed you, Dosso's Demons. Everyone wants to hear your thoughts, your mini press conference. Because I know you've said, it was a difficult game, but the scoreboard didn't really show it. I want to hear your thoughts first and foremost for the Sainers out there.
Jake, thanks for having me on, mate. Big clash down at RSEA Park. Not the biggest clash that we've seen down there in the last couple of months, but it was a weird one where those first 5, 6, 7 minutes, it felt like it was on, and maybe it's because I haven't played footy since under 18s, and that was a long, long time ago. But I don't know, it was good intensity. There was a lot of tackles laid, and we played a game before that one, so that was our second game, and it was just real sort of. It felt like the EJ Witten game, where it was sort of touch footy. It was sort of token pressure. But when we came to RSEA Park, we felt like it was really on, and I think you guys had the first 2 or 3 scoring shots, could have easily put the first couple of goals on us. And I was frightened because we'd had this 2-hour drive up. We got there late. We'd had this just nightmare of a morning. 3 or 4 of us were sick, and you guys were warming up. And then you just have 3 scoring shots to start, and we just went, "Oh no, we're in for a long day." But we slowly worked our way into the game, and I think it's really you got to be familiar with the half court inside 50 game of football. And we're quite used to how to play that. So I think it was probably experience that got us the job in the end. But the Dosso's Demons are 2-0, and we're on to bigger and better things, hopefully.
Mate, I'll tell you, Marshy especially watching it back in the first 3 minutes, even my missus was like, "He looks cooked." I'm like, he was cooked. And most of the boys blame me for the Nick Rewald-esque warm-up, where it was a good 2.5 hour pre-game warm-up. And they're like, it was a warm day, had the long sleeves on, not the best guy. I probably wouldn't do that again if I had my time over.
No, well, thanks for coming down. It was a good contest, and maybe season 2 we might have to go again.
And that late inclusion that would have been nice that I told you about, the Paddy Ryder cameo would have been very nice. But
there was rumours that Paddy Ryder almost lined up, which
circulating on Twitter. Yep.
For the sake of the video, just would have been unbelievable. Not for the contest. I feel like he probably could have swung the game just with that inclusion himself.
Just goal square. Take a few grabs. Take a few. Easy. But onto Friday. Are you going to be there?
So I don't know. I'm a little bit busy this week. I'm trying to move up to Melbourne, so I don't know whether I'll still have stuff to do on Friday. Is it in the afternoon?
Yeah, I believe it's 4 p.m. And it's going to be, so just for everyone listening, 4 p.m. RSEA Park, 6:25-minute quarters, I suppose, and no time on. So they're stretching it out.
I reckon I'm leaning towards a bit of a KO job. But if I can, I will come down. Are you going to be there?
Yeah, I'll be there. We've got Melbourne on the Friday, and then another week away, we've got the Bombers there for the kind of official pracky game. So we'll be there for both of those, which will be nice. But the Dees, I'm just looking, mate, based on how the final series ended last year. I mean, last time we spoke, we played you, I think it would have been round 6 or 7 last year. And we were pretty hot at that time. We were going all right.
Yeah, it was two top 3 teams at that point.
Yeah. You talked us up, and then you guys pantsed us in that first half. Just clinical, too good on the day. We started slow, and it just didn't work out for us. But there's been a lot of changes for us since then, but there's been also a fair few changes for you guys. Just looking at your ins and outs, even some of the players that you've lost. Obviously, we know the big one. Obviously, Jaden Hunt being the big one that left. Lukey Jackson. How are you feeling about that change, and then some of the other ones we'll talk about as well?
So I don't like the narrative of people changing opinion on someone just because they leave or they move or they're worth a certain amount. So Luke Jackson is a generational talent. We haven't seen someone of that size, 200 centimeters, move like that, tackle like that, compete like that. His skills below his feet, his marking ability. We haven't seen someone do that. I like for a long, long time. Potentially Nick Nat type
Yeah.
start to his career. Maybe Nick Nat was still a little bit light and took a little bit of time, but Luke Jackson is a phenomenon, and it was gut wrenching for him to leave. The premiership soured it a little bit. No, the premiership sort of cushioned the blow a little bit. But if we had to just snag that second flag back to back, I would have just been like, take your bags and leave. Thanks for your services. But because I feel like there's still a bit more success to go in this team, and him being a massive part of it, I'm a little bit nervous that he has left. But yeah, I just didn't like when Luke Jackson left and we heard the money. It went from like, geez, this 20-year-old ruckman's a gun to, oh, he's overrated. Oh, he's not that good.
Yeah.
Oh, he's going to struggle. Oh, how's he going to get in the side if Sean Darcy's there? It's like this kid he offers such a different look. He could potentially play midfield, forward, ruck. He could do it all. So, yeah, I was absolutely gutted for him to leave. But in saying that, in a weird sort of simulation type world, we've secured Brodie Grundy, and
that's also a nice
absurd.
cushion of that. Yeah,
that is absolutely absurd. Like a couple of years ago, I was in the forums. Everyone was saying Brodie Grundy deserves the number one ruck spot in the All Australian, and I think it was like 2019, 2020, and I think he got it. But I was sort of saying, oh, Brodie Grundy, he doesn't mark as much as Gawn, and I was trying to like stand up for Gawny in that year because I just wanted him to get another All Australian. But yeah, there was a conversation that these two were the best in the comp, and it was just unheard of that they would play together. So, yeah, Luke Jackson is a massive loss. I feel like we've covered it as best as we can. I know people think it's a little bit too like top heavy, but Brodie Grundy does play like Luke Jackson plays the Brodie Grundy style of ruck with like clean below his feet, follows up. Loves to tackle, loves that follow-up play. So, I don't know. It's a weird world where, we've secured like potentially the second best ruckman in the comp, and we almost look a little bit stronger than we probably did last year.
Yeah, that was my next question was, on paper, do you feel like this side is better than last year, that they should go further?
I think we should go further than a semi-final.
Yeah, you're looking prelim?
I think prelim is a pass mark for this team, even last year. So we fell short. And I know it was just by game. And, we were tailing Sydney up in the qualifier, 30 points up halfway through the second, gassed out. Tailing the Lions up again, up by 5 goals halfway through the third, gassed out. Gut-wrenching. Like, I watch our highlights from last year back and, I can sort of see the games that we lost. Like I think it was the other day I was watching Bailey Fritsch, every Bailey Fritsch goal or something popped up on YouTube and from 2022. And it came up and it was like the Collingwood game came up. And, at that point where Bailey Fritsch is kicking one in the third, we're up by 5 goals and we lost that one. There was multiple games that we lost, but we were winning and in really strong positions throughout it. So I don't know if it was a fatigue thing. I don't know if it was a fitness thing. I think a lot of blokes were carrying injuries. I've heard Gawny talk about how 2021 and 2022 molded into the same year. So they sort of had an 18-month campaign trying to, squeeze the success out of that group. So I'm glad that they sort of, they bowed out. We would have got towed up by Geelong. That could have been 186 points again. Like we were gassed and they were firing. So I'm sort of glad we missed that one. Refresh, bring in some new faces, some new talent, and hopefully we can go again. But I think prelim once again is the pass mark, like at least.
Yeah, I actually went to the Brizzy Melbourne game, so I got a kind of good view of it. And before the game on the way in on the train, a Melbourne fan, he's in the know. He knows a few things, and he mentioned there's a few boys that are running out tonight that are done. Like they're just physically done. And he's like, watch the Lions. They're on tonight. I was like, I don't know. I just felt like the Dees were fine. Like you just always wait for these sort of teams to just get going, There's always that, tonight's the night. They've been primed. They've just waited for this moment. The rest has just been easy. Now this is where the business end starts. And yeah, like you said, halfway through the third, you were cruising. But I just felt like Brizzy were just, I don't know, they had some energy about them. I thought if they get a couple of goals here, and I remember it was just before halftime. You'll remember this. They kicked a crucial goal, literally in the last seconds. And it just changed. I was like, that could be a momentum changer. And my mate who I was with is a Brisbane fan. He's like, you kick a goal before halftime, then you got 30-minute break. Momentum's, it's non-existent. But Lions came out and they carried it through and they got the job done. So I'm wondering, do you think that there'll be any shift in game plan at all? Any experimentation on Friday that we might see from you boys? Or do you think you're really just going to stick to your guns and play the same way we've seen the last 2 years?
Man, I hope there's a shift in game plan. I don't even feel like we played in 2021 the way we played in 2022. I felt like we had, like, once there was that man on the mark rule came in, I felt like we adapted to that as well as anyone. We would just wheel and go. And it wasn't kamikaze through the middle like Collingwood and Geelong did last year. But in 2021, there was like a lot of wheel and go, a lot of spread, and it was quite fast the way we could go end to end. In 2022, oh my God, it was like, say the Saint has kicked a point. Stephen May walks out to the goal square, dumps it long to the corner of the centre square, and it's Gorney and then 55 blokes standing there. Potentially Gorney marks it. If he doesn't, potentially we get it, like at ground level. We hit someone on the wing. They take a mark, and it's like they've taken a mark inside 50. They mosey on back off the mark, look inside, look down the line, kick high and long. And it was the most boringest, unimaginative, safe game plan you could ever see. And I don't know why they were doing it. I don't know why. But maybe that helps shore up the defence, because our defence wasn't as good as 2021 last year, but it was still like one of the best in the league. Yeah. So maybe like that slow play helps them all set up. I'm not sure, but it was just really frustrating. So I hope, without it being too kamikaze, I don't really want to play our turn, your turn football. Like, I love that the Dees can lock a team down and hold them to 50 points. That's so satisfying. Like, when we score 80 and a team scores 50, I walk away going, that was the best. Like, they barely got anywhere near it. I love that suffocation of like another football side. So I don't want it to be too open or too kamikaze, but I think we got to go. I think we really got to, quicken up the game style, because, or do something differently in defence, because that fast game style, which was implemented to counteract the Dees, it got through our defence. And not a whole lot. Like, I think only one team scored 100 points against us, and it was the Dogs, and only one with the last kick of the game. But, teams weren't scoring big against us, but they were scoring enough. They could pierce that defence enough, which was frustrating. So I hope there is a bit of a change in the game style.
And that's kind of what I noticed when we played you last time, was we came out and I think we were just, I don't know if we were shell-shocked or we were a bit worried about your power. Just the fact that when you got the ball, you turn it over and score very quickly against us. And we tried to chip it around. We tried to switch the play, I remember. And that was completely opposite to what we'd done the previous 6 weeks. And that put us 5-1 or whatever it might have been. We went completely against what worked, because we were threatened by the Dees. And then the second half, we played through the middle, played on at all costs. And I think at halftime, the margin was about 38, 39 points. It was looking like it was going to be a 10-goal win for you boys. And I think in the end, it was maybe 30, 31, something like that, and we kind of just stemmed the bleeding. So I think you're right in that other teams will try and get at you a bit more this year. Do you think that the fact that you've got the midfield that you've got Oliver, you got Petrarca, you got Viney, obviously you got Gorney, now you got Grundy in the rucks. I'm probably missing a few decent players there anyway. Do you reckon that bombing game plan was pretty much a shortcut? Like, we'll kick it long because we know that the boys are good at stoppages. They're good at the ground ball. We don't need to go and chip it around and try and play fast. We're just going to try and get it 70 meters out, reset, ball up. We've got the two best rucks in the comp. You probably still do now. And then you've got the best mids in the comp. I mean, if you were a coach, you'd be like, that's an option, I suppose. Like, if our kicking's not 100% at the moment, let's just get territory, because we know we've got the boys in the middle that are just going to keep getting it forward. You're going to win more clearances than you lose.
Well, saying territories, I think you've hit the nail on the head. Like, Simon Goodwin is massive on like winning the territory battle, but against. So it works. It works against, I would say, I don't know, 14 other teams. But if you remember towards the end of last year, the stats, and it was Melbourne, Collingwood on the Friday night, and we're up by 30 points, and they chased us down. And then Josh Dacos kicked a couple of clutch goals. Ash Johnson kicked one late, and they got over the line. Massive Friday night game, 70,000, all duck, no dinner. Like, it was just, the theatre of that night was amazing. And after the game, you saw the stats, and the Dees won clearance. I'm making these numbers up, and maybe it's a bit of hyperbole, but it might have been like one clearance by 20, one tackles by 20, one contested ball by 30, one inside 50s by 20. Like, we'd sort of smashed them in every area. But it didn't work because the counter attack just killed us. And I don't really have an answer for it. I'm just a nuffy from Geelong who doesn't really understand the nuances of the game plan and the contest. But yeah, it didn't quite work. That territory, just relying on getting territory, didn't work for us. The other thing that teams would do that we did pick up on is they would give us the first disposal because we win contested ball anyway. So even if you try to win it, like even if your game plan is to beat us to the contested ball,
you'll still win more than you lose.
Yeah, we'll still win. Yeah, 100%. So a team like the Dogs, I think it was the Dogs or maybe it was the Swans or someone, they let us have that first possession, and then they had like this ring around like the play that would just pounce on us or intercept that first handball. It was just so unique. It was like, oh, well, we're not going to beat Petrarca, Oliver, Viney to the football. So let's just see what they do with it when they first get it. So that was like another tactic that sort of tore us up. So I don't know. I trust our coaching staff. Simon Goodwin on a few occasions has revamped and reshaped the game. In 2017 and 2018, he had like 3 defenders come off the back line. So we would have the midfield and then we'd have like 3 extras at the first, like once the ball like got bounced in the middle. And we had like this Melbourne wave. And I remember like the 666 sort of broke that up and ruined that. But I remember going, that's so innovative. Like that's so unique. And then obviously the way we did the Demons sort of press and defense in the last couple of years. So I have faith that they're, over the last 6 months, they'll come up with something that's really exciting and sort of counteract a lot of the looks that we had last year. But we can't just dump it long. We can't rely on territory. I think Lockie Hunter is a little bit of a money ball pickup. He was my most hated opposition player of all time. The way he just ducks and he's good, but he ducks and he's lippy and he's competitive, but he's a little bit,
And then he ducks.
And then he ducks and he's a little cheap. So when we got Lockie Hunter, I was like, oh no, like what are we doing? But I think after reading some reports, it's a little bit of money ball. We're filling a need. He's going to be on the other wing opposite Ed Langdon. And I think statistically, and I might be making this up as well, but I think he's one of the best like inside 50 to a lead converters
for sure.
there is.
For sure.
So our issue is lowering the eyes and hitting a target. And we've got like one of the best, better players in the league that does that really cheaply. So it's like such a weird sort of nuanced sort of pickup where everyone goes, Lockie Hunter, he's done. Like, what's he going to do at the D's? But he might play that role that we don't quite have that opens up the forward line. So I think he could play an important role for the Melbourne Footy Club.
Yeah. So that leads me into my next question. Is there a player, obviously there's a lot of stars we could talk about, but I'm just looking at some of the ins and some of the new faces. Is there a player that maybe Saints fans don't really know about, or even Dees fans don't know about that well, that you think could have a big year, could be a bit of a underrated sort of superstar, down the line?
For the D's?
Yeah.
Obviously. Obviously we lost Jaden Hunt, and there's been a lot of chatter about a kid called Judd McVeigh. He's from WA, and he is like a half-backer, smooth-moving, skillful operator. I haven't even seen like a clip of him. I've just been in the forums and deep and dark in the dark web, just reading all these training reports that, this kid, Judd McVeigh, apparently is tearing up the track. So I think he's someone to sort of flag. The obvious one that I think has probably like the talk has probably extended out of the Melbourne Footy Club, Nuffy Brigade, is Jacob Van Rooyen. He is 19, 20, massive lump of a kid. He's the height of Jack Rewalt, but he's probably a little bit heavier. Maybe he's like a Jack Darling type frame, but he's just this like huge 20-year-old key forward, full forward, kicked 36 goals in the VFL last year, competes, tackles, loves to crash a pack. Like I love my man Sammy Wiedemann. He's one of my favourite, players of all time. He's the nicest bloke off the field as well. And when he had to, like when Sammy Wiedemann had to go, he would, and he would compete as hard as he could. But it wasn't like a natural attribute. Like I think his, goal kicking and awareness and the ability to bring other players into the play is probably really natural to Sammy. But competing and crashing a pack, it's like he would do it, but it's something that's been learnt through like the footy club. Jacob Van Rooyen just crashes packs.
Just does that already.
Yeah. So I feel like and I've seen the club try and like lower the expectations because the fans think he's David Neitz reincarnated. Like everyone's just lost their chops. And we got to remember that he's a 20-year-old, very green key forward, and they take time. But I've seen the club, like Alan Richardson has come out and said, Richo, former Saints coach, he's come out and said, I feel like, he's 20-year-old forward and I've seen some of the hysteria. So, he'll play a couple of games this year, but I think he'll play every game. I think he's going to.
That's a big call, man. That's a big call. Every game.
Well, that's what Ben Brown. So.
Yeah, I was going to say that forward line, Melbourne's forward line's always interested me because I've always thought, you look at Geelong, like to me, one of their biggest strengths is their forward line. Like it's elite. Like they just kick bags and bags. And then I look at Melbourne's and I'm like, is there still something there that's lacking? Do you think that your forward line is good enough to kick, I guess, a winning score against teams like that, where they've just got the stars? You've got obviously Ben Brown, you've got Fritsch, you've got Cozzy Peckett. Have you got MacDonald? Does he still play that down there?
Yeah, so he did a Liz Frank injury, which I think is like a crack in your foot. Yeah, he's back now. He's fit and firing, and I'm someone who thought that he would be squeezed out for a Wiedemann or Van Rooyen, but he's structurally really handy for us. So I think he has to be in, and then it's out of Benny Brown and Van Rooyen to fill that last spot. So yeah, I think T-Mac will be in, and I think he has to be. But yeah, as you were saying, like, can it kick a winning score? It can when we limit teams to 50 points. So when we suffocate sides, we can kick a winning score, and we usually kick around 80 or 90. It's just if a team does kick 80 on us, that's when it's tight, and that's when we probably fall short. So I would love for us to start doing like a bit of a Brisbane Lions, and they probably have the opposite problem to the Dees. They probably would love a really tight knit defense. But like the Brisbane Lions will kick 120 points and they'll win by 20 points.
Yeah, well, they're the opposite. They kick a lot, but they concede a lot as well. Yeah.
So I think they can kick a winning score. I don't think it's personnel. I think it's Goody uses a word. What's a word that he method? That's the word. In every press conference he goes, method. We got to work on our method. So yeah, I don't think it's a personnel problem. I think it's a method problem. Cozzy Pickett has kicked 40 goals the last two or 3 years. So underrated. Like I know, there was articles when he was 18. Could he be the next Cyril? So now every sort of neutral Australian football supporter with tall poppy syndrome goes, Cozzy Pickett's overrated. They reckon he's the next Cyril. Well, if you take that comparison out, he's a star and he's a gun and he's doing,
any team would want him in that small forward position. That's 100%. That's it. 100%.
And then like a Bailey Fritsch has kicked 60 goals and 50 goals in the last 2 years. I think the only person to kick more goals than Bailey Fritsch in the last 2 years is Tom Hawkins. So that's another like little underrated forward that we have. So once again, I don't think it's personnel. I think there's enough goals in the legs of like the blokes who will line up there. I think it's method, and yeah, maybe Lockie Hunter can lower the eyes so we don't just put it on Gozzie's head every time.
What now? Now, this is where it gets interesting.
Oh boy.
The Saints. We haven't talked about my boys too much just yet, but I've saved that
Let's
for
talk
the
about
end.
it.
All the changes that's been going on. Obviously, you don't need to be a St Kilda supporter to know what's happened the last 4 to 5 months. Where do you see the Saints? I don't know if you've done a ladder predictor. I know you certainly don't have us in the 8 if you did one, because no one has us in the 8, which is fine, totally fine. But I want your honest thoughts on, from an outsider's perspective, non-Sainer, how are we looking? What are your thoughts on getting someone like a Rossi Lyon? Would you, if you were a Sainer, would you have been stoked with that appointment? Curious to hear what you reckon about that situation.
So I did a squibble the other day.
Yeah. You've got us, I'm going to guess, 12th.
It doesn't. Yeah, 13th.
Yeah, there you go. Everyone's got 12, 13, I reckon. Most non-Sainers. Whereas Sainers are like 8 to 12 or 8 to 11, pretty much.
And probably fair enough. So when I heard the Ross Lyon news, I wasn't inspired. I was like, what the hell? Like, he is probably the best coach that's not coaching out there. So it does make sense. And I love him in the media. Like, when I listen to Ross, like, I like when he's hard, and then I like when he goes easy on people. And it's sort of like that Gordon Ramsay sort of persona where, like, if Gordon Ramsay gives you a compliment, you know it really means something because of how high his standards are. And I feel like Ross Lyon is sort of similar. So I am inspired by Ross just as, like, a personality. But, you know, we churned through heaps of coaches as a football side, and I couldn't really imagine going back to one that didn't quite get the job done. But I feel like, you know, the teams that he did coach, when I think about it, probably should have won a flag. So
should have won
maybe,
one or two.
Maybe he is a premiership coach in hiding, realistically.
By default.
Yeah, well, I think Nathan Buckley is like a premiership coach by default. Like, and I think Adam Simpson's a bit of a fraud. Like, he had 1 year.
I know, and then he gets the chocolates. Yeah.
So now he's a premiership coach, but and Nathan Buckley isn't. So maybe my logic is a little bit flawed. So initially I was like, oh, that sounds a bit weird considering, like, he left the club and whatnot. But seeing, like, interviews and stuff of him down at the club, he's so inspired. Like, he's so passionate. It looks like he's down at, like, his childhood team that he supported. Like, he loves the St Kilda Football Club. I think him coming in with a happier mindset, like, I know it's cuddly Ross at the moment. I feel like that is so good. Like, for the modern player, you don't need to bark and be demonstrative anymore. Like, I feel like communicating and be really clear with your message and building up these young talent is going to be massive, like, for that team. So on one hand, like, Port, Western Bulldogs and Saints are the same to me. Like, they always just sit in that block, and they always say, like, the following year, we're going to take the next step. We're going to take the next step. I think Bulldogs are on the way down, like down. I think Port are going to be close to the 8, and I think Saints will be in the middle of that. And that's like my, 21st of February maths. But that's where it sits for me. But then again, Ross, I listened to an interview.
That's what everyone does. They go, yeah, Saints are going to be shit, and then they're like, but what if Ross is actually still the head coach? And then they just think about, like, shit, they could be good, but yeah, no one knows.
So what worries me is, like, Mac King's out, and I know there's probably other people to hop in, but Ross was sort of saying, for the first half of the year, we're going to have to invent goals, and I don't really like hearing that. I think the midfield can lack that superstar, and I know they go after the goey and whatnot. I love Mateus Philippou. He's a freak.
He's going to be.
And I love that attitude. So I feel like you need someone with that attitude. He wants to be the best player in the club from when he walks in, and
in the comp, he wants to be.
And I think that swagger is necessary. I think gone are the days of, like, kids who walk in, speak when spoken to. they're too nervous to show
Mm.
their attributes. And now we get like 17, 18-year-olds that come in and say, look, I want to be the best player here. And I think that'll make clubs better quicker. So I love him. But yeah, I feel like if you're manufacturing goals for the first half of the season, Ross's first year, yeah, I don't think there's enough star power to sort of get you guys into the 8 yet, which is crazy because you're in the 8 like 2 years ago. So I'm not sure. But where do you see it all sit?
Yeah, no, I'm trying to have a bit of an open mind about everything because, like, I'd be a bit more certain about what I think our chances are if we had a fully fit list, but we don't. We don't have King, and if we, need another forward, we had Jack Hayes. He's also injured. Tim Membry's, getting his knee cleaned out or something, so he's out until pretty much round 1 is ready to go. So he won't be there Friday. So our forward line on Friday will be Sharman, Anthony Caminiti that we took from the Carlton VFL side, and he looks all right, but again, unproven. Him against May or him against Lever or whatever is not, an even match. And then we've got our smalls, so it's going to be a very interesting watch on Friday to see how because obviously if we just go and bomb it with King there, even I'd still be like, we're going to lose this game against Melbourne because you'll just intercept it, rebound, kick goals the other way. But now we don't even have King, we don't even have Hayes, we don't have Membry, so it seems like there's no other way but to rely on our mids and our smalls to kick the goals, So, like you said, I think our midfield, although it doesn't have that star, I always go back to Gresh. If he gets a full season, JB, like Billings, if he can kick a couple of goals off half forward on a wing. Hunter Clark as well, going in the guts could be a different look for us. Jack Sinclair, rumoured to be moving back into the midfield. With Nasiah, Wanganeen, Malira playing more off that half-back role.
Jack Sinclair was almost All-Australian, though.
He was. He got it.
Oh, he was All-Australian?
He was half-back All-Australian last year.
You can't move him then.
That's what I say, but then I'm like, but Sink's out of the middle, kicking into someone on the lead, like he's a great kick. And if you can put Nasiah, Wanganeen, Malira back, he's as good a kick as Sinks. And he needs to get the ball more. So I think half-back's a good position for a youngster to get, I guess, an idea of the field and to get a bit of that feel for the footy a bit more. But yeah, if I had to pick a position on the ladder, like I always say just 8 to 11, 8 to 12. It's impossible, man. It's impossible. Our first 4 weeks, we've got Fremantle, we've got the Dogs, we've got the Bombers, and then Gold Coast, all in Melbourne. Now, if we were fully fit, you go Fremantle's 50-50, the Dogs is 50-50.
Should beat the Dogs, I reckon.
You should beat the Bombers in round 3, and then you got Gold Coast at Marvel round 4. You're like, they're good fixtures to have with the injuries that we have, Yeah. Because none of those teams have amazing backlines. Obviously, Freo is probably the best team out of that 4, but like if we go 3-1 in that stretch, and then we get King and these guys back, then I'll feel a bit different. But right now, it's kind of like, don't lose by big margins. But we don't know what Ross is going to do because Ross is supposedly training them to play very fast footy, play on at all costs. I don't know.
Which is crazy. That is just not his go.
It's not his go. But I've said it to so many people. They're like, Sainers and non-Sainers, they're like, why are you getting Ross? He's just going to play that boring game plan again and this and that. And I'm like, first of all, when he was coach, we were top 4 for defense, fair enough, but we were also top 4 for attack every year.
Yeah.
People forget that Riwot's kicking 60, 70 goals a year under him. Milne's kicking 30, 40, 50s. Cozzy's there with another 30. Like, we kicked a lot of goals, but we just didn't concede many.
That's what you want to do.
Yeah, and like you said, he's as good, I guess, a footy expert outside of coach in the last 5 or 6 years as anyone. Like Footy Classified or whatever he's been on. He knows the game. So I've got faith, and I've got pretty high expectations for Friday. I want to see a pretty solid game because from what I've seen at training, it's been a bit scratchy, but hopefully playing an actual outfit like the Dees, it's a good benchmark for us too because you won't take it. I mean, you might take it a bit easy, but it's not going to be a walk in the park, is it?
Yeah, we always since like 2017, we take every game really competitively. So I think you will get like a real honest look at the Melbourne Football Club. We played
Mm.
we played Richmond like 3 years ago or 2 years ago when we won the flag in our first practice match, and we beat them by 8 points. And I remember thinking like the way we moved the ball and whatnot, I was like, oh, this is good. And Richmond just won the premiership, but I was like really impressed. And then last year, North Melbourne came down to Casey, and we beat them by like 110 points in the pracky match. And they came out afterwards and had like a press conference. I think Brady Rawlings came out and was like, "This is not what we want to stand for," and like we're really apologies to the members. And I was like, "Oh, it's just a pracky match at Casey." But so I think you will see like a pretty ferocious Melbourne Footy Club. I don't like this 6-quarter stuff. Like,
no, I was going to say that's one thing. I hope they do 4 pretty intense quarters, like proper footy, and then maybe the last 20 minutes they'll just rotate players that didn't get much of a run. I'm hoping that's the case.
I remember watching Collingwood and Hawthorn in Traralgon or Maui or something, and I think Collingwood were up by 80 points at
and they lost
quarter, and they lost
in overtime. They lost.
Yeah, the Hawthorn team that came on for the last 2 terms like flogged them. And once again in the forums, there was some Collingwood supporters like, "What the hell? Like, how we choked that?" And they were like, "Mate, our like twos came out and played. Like, it means nothing. Why are you getting upset?" But so it's going to be hard to read. I think those first 2 or 3 quarters will be like the most realistic part, and then it'll sort of phase into like the seconds.
Yeah. Before we wrap it up, mate, give me the one thing you want to see on Friday. From the Dees perspective, what's the one thing you're like, we're going to get this right, and then I'll know that we're serious this year, that we're a chance to go all the way?
Connection going forward. Obviously, I think, can we hit the forwards up? That's the bottom line, and maybe not out of the midfield, but I think that transition, that transition end to end when we get to the top of the 50, do we wheel and go and just trust that we'll hit that target? Or do we mosey on back off the mark, wait for 5 minutes, wait for Gawn to slowly but surely get to that pocket right on the boundary and just put it on his head? And if that's the case, I'm going to be pretty disappointed. So, that connection forward of centre. They've had 6 months to get it right. Lockie Hunter, hopefully he's a wizard with his foot skills. And, that would be the one thing. What about for the Saints? What are you hoping to see?
Oh, well, there's so many different things. I mean, the most important thing for me is to see a functioning forward line, like to see who goes deep, who plays centre half forward. There's so many up in the airs about that, whether we try and play a smaller game or we still back the tools that we've got, because we've got Marshall still. We've got Caminiti, who's nearly 200. Sharman's, he's 190 something, and he's put a bit of size on. So there's still some targets there, but they're all inexperienced. And the other thing is just a identifiable game plan. Like, I want to see the boys look like they know what they're doing. I felt like too many times last year, particularly in the second half of the year, we got the footy under wraps, and it was very much make it up as you go. It wasn't like, we know what to do. Whereas, you watch the Dees, even when you're losing, it still looks like the Dees kind of know what they're supposed to do. It's just, it's not coming off as much as it should. It's execution or it's something like that. But for us, it's not just execution. It's like, we look like deer in headlights. Like, we look lost. So if 5 minutes into the pracky game on a Friday after 6 months of training with a new coach, if we look lost, I'm like, I don't know, this feels a bit off, But I just want to see, I want to see some smooth transition. I want to see some good kicking, some good structure, and the result, it doesn't really matter. Like, do you care if you got done by 10 goals on Friday? Would you care? Would that bother you? It's a tough question because
not necessarily, because no, I wouldn't care about the result, but my brain for the next 3 weeks would be like, oh my god, what if we finish? If we finish bottom 6, like, imagine what if
it's just
they'd been injured all pre-season. Like, my brain would go into overdrive. I'd overthink everything. I'd probably quit my YouTube and just start panicking. So
I guarantee though, if you belted us, watch the papers the next day, rip into Ross and us, but also you'll be flag favourites. Like, you'll be like, the D's are back. Look at them. They're formidable. Grundy and Gawn, no one's going to compete with them. Watch that happen.
I've got a bit of a weird inkling for the Dees this year. So teams that go on to be successful, like Richmond, Hawthorn, and Geelong, like throughout their like premiership years, they started somewhat slowly. Like every year, Geelong is sort of 4-2, and I know that's not necessarily slowly, but they'll be 3-2, say. Like, they always start with a couple of losses, and then from like round 8 onwards, they'll lose 1 or 2 more,
or none, literally,
or none. So I find that like super fascinating because the last couple of years, the D's always bank the first 10 games because they want to bank games early. So then later on in the season, when it gets tougher, they've got those points on the board. I almost think, I've got this weird feeling that the D's will start slower this year because we've got a bit of a tough fixture to start. So I think we'll do the Geelong 3-2, or we'll start quite slowly. And hopefully we do what the Hawks, the Tigers and the Cats do, and you build into the season and you time your run well. And, that's my little tip, but potentially, we might start 4-3 and then be 4-7, and then all of a sudden we've fallen off a cliff. So hopefully that's not the case. But just timing our run a bit better this season would be helpful.
Yeah, and no injuries on Friday for either team would be decent. That's always the thing. I look at, it's 6 quarters or whatever, 25 minutes, and you're like, we've had enough injuries as it is. Do we really need to go this long? Just go the 4 quarters, just go 20 minutes, be done with it. You get 2 of those games and then a week off in round 1. That should be enough. But, it is what it is. Hopefully it's a solid game. And, if you saw a Gorn go down or something, it's just not something you want to see, I don't want to put that vision in your head, mate. I'm sorry. But, we've had a few go down already. So I just want bare minimum, just this side to get to round 1 healthy,
Yeah, 100%.
So we'll see what happens. But thanks for your time, mate. Appreciate it as always. Thanks for giving your honest thoughts on the game we played a few months ago. Now everyone will know that it was a solid game, despite the scoreboard being lopsided. It was competitive. And what do you think of me, by the way, as an individual player? Could I make the cut in your team?
100%.
Would I get a gig?
Yes, you would. You'd be one of the better players in our team. There was a lot, and this might be a backhanded compliment.
Probably, yeah.
Because there's a lot of my mates who obviously they see, they're not massive into the AFL YouTube stuff, but they do see bits and pieces pop up. And I think I might have sent them a couple of your videos that you made about the trailer about us and whatnot.
Oh yeah.
And some of my mates went like Jake was really good, surprisingly good, because I think they assumed YouTube not really into footy, but you obviously have a footy background. You played before. The speed, the skill, you're very good. You'd easily make the Dossos Demons, and we might need you. You never know.
I don't think the Saners will enjoy if I got a gig and change teams halfway through the season. Get a few unsubs there, but yeah. Yeah,
unfortunately, I don't think your team had the depth. Yeah, you had a couple of really good players, but they didn't come with their captain, which was really a bit of a letdown for the
Marshy, mate, if you're watching this. No.
Marshy was good. He put my head into the goalpost.
That was his highlight. Seriously, after the game, he's like, can't wait to watch that back. It's like I did nothing for the whole game, but I took out Kados. I'm like, that was pretty solid. And then I think he shanked the kick, didn't he? I think that he missed the goal there or something like that. But beautiful. On that very, very positive note, thanks for the compliments, mate. I'll leave you to it. You're a busy man, but appreciate your time, and hopefully Friday night's a solid game.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for having me, and looking forward to this week, and good luck to the Saners this year. It's always tough to beat your mob. I think you guys had 12 or 14 wins in a row against us for a long, long time, so it's always a little bit nerve-wracking coming up against the Saints, but keen to talk about it next time we take you on. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Take care, mate. Thanks.